So this video will cover a bit of a retraction, or rather a expansion on what I've already said regarding how stress plays a part in menopause. It will also cover a mind-body connection and your way through the challenges related to health. This is big stuff and something to consume with an open mind, because it's contrary to so much of what we've been taught in our culture. So if you are a person who prides yourself on being open-minded, this is your opportunity. Also, I am able to provide scientific evidence for those who also prefer to have that. Big stuff, life-changing stuff. Let's jump in. So this week I was shown a video, which I'll link in the comments, in the description rather. And the video focus was on stress being good for you. Yes, I know this is already jumping in the deep end. And if you're anything like me, lots of red flags going up. Oh my goodness, how can that possibly be true? Because not only has she said the complete opposite, but also most of the world is saying the complete opposite. Keep an open mind with me. Now, the importance of finishing this video so you don't just run out and think that stress is good for you is more important than any other video I've shared. So don't just dive in and say, okay, stress is good for me. Unless you can truly feel that and believe that. And I don't, believe's not the right word. Know it to your core. Like you know that the sun is going to come up. Like you know that your child's name is whatever. That kind of knowing. Okay, solid, solid, solid. Here's the studies to back up the idea that I'm sharing with you. It was on a TEDx. This woman who had been a health psychologist, coach, I believe is what she called herself, regarding helping people diminish stress because it's bad for you. What the studies showed was that, and we're talking clinical studies for those that need that type of information, the studies showed that actually when they compared two groups of people, one being a group that had a belief that stress is not bad for you, and the other believing that stress is bad for you, and both groups having stressful life circumstances, then they looked at the results of who had a greater percentage chance of dying at an earlier age. And they showed that it was the group who believed that stress is bad for you. And to further back that up, I have recently had a conglomeration of videos and books that I've read that support this with further evidence. And I'll give you some examples. So one example that I can't quote what book it came from, but that I learned a long time ago when I first started studying about menopause, and the potential for osteoporosis. I found that one of the ways that you can prevent osteoporosis is by strength bearing exercises, weight bearing. And the reason why that works is because it makes tiny fractures in the bone, and then the cells say, oh goodness, there's a problem, let's go fix it. And they patch it with more calcium and whatever else. There's a bunch of minerals involved in bones. And now that area is stronger. So that was my first evidence years ago that stress can help the body cope better. However, I didn't recognize that applied to so many other areas, basically your whole body. So that was like, I categorized that as, well, that works for bones and it's only a certain amount of stress. Okay. Another example. Recently read a book, or rather am reading a book called Spark, The Revolutionary New Science of Exercise and the Brain. And within this book, he talks about how the muscles, and this is fairly common knowledge, especially if you're a person who is athletic or into fitness. The muscles actually are torn down and then rebuilt when you're doing any kind of physical fitness. And as that process happens, as you will see evidenced from people who are very fit or bodybuilders, then the muscle gets stronger. So tearing it down and then rebuilding it. Another example. In that same book, and I shared a previous video on this book, they talk about how mild amounts of stress can actually improve the nerve cells. And one of the reasons why plants, which are often touted in some circles as being toxic to the body because they have what are referred to as anti-nutrients, compounds that are protecting the plant from harm, are actually bad for the body, and we should avoid them. There are people that take that to the extreme and say don't eat plants at all. And then there's various levels of how much you should eat according to these different groups of people. The reason, yes, that's true that plants do have those toxins, and the reason why that is helpful is because it creates a stress on the nervous system, and the nerve cells come in with their enzymes to help repair the situation. So then the nerve becomes more resilient. The nerve cell becomes more resilient. And on with these examples. So we've got the most recent one is the one that I'll tag in the description, where she's shared the idea of stress being good for you. She talks about how it actually also helps the heart. And at the moment, I'm not recalling the specifics of the study that she shared regarding how it helps the heart. But if you want to check out the video, I'm sure she'll get into that in there. And it's maybe about 15-minute video. The video that I watched, or rather the book that I read a few months ago, I guess, called The Biology of Belief, very much supports what I'm saying. So here's what it boils down to. I've mentioned in previous videos the placebo effect. So the more that you believe something to be true, the more impact it's going to have on you. So, for example, modern medicine recognizes this because they have control groups to compare with the people that are taking the pills, to see how did this group taking the pills do with the group not taking the pills, but taking like a sugar pill. And of course, not being told that they were getting the sugar pill, just here's your pill. And modern medicine recognizes this so much so, the placebo effect, that they also have started to weed out people that are more likely to have a placebo effect out of their studies, because what they also understand is that the nocebo effect is true. So nocebo means it's not going to help. Um, and that that piece is a little more complicated because it can go in either direction. But if a person is convinced that no matter what, something's not going to help, then it won't. Um, so again, it's coming back to the belief about something. And the same is true with health conditions, and that includes symptoms related to menopause. So if you believe that it's bad for you, if you believe that it shouldn't be happening, if you resist it, then it'll continue to show up in your life because you are giving credit to it. Put this in a more practical life example. Let's say that somebody walks up to you, a complete stranger, and says to you, and assuming that this is not true about you, says to you, I love your purple hair. And you then look at them like, okay, thanks, like, or whatever your response might be. But if you don't have purple hair, you're going to give zero weight to that comment, because it means nothing. It's as if somebody's told you a complete lie, and you know that it's a complete lie. So you're like, why would I listen to that? Or if you have no trust in what the person is saying, and this is where it gets interesting, right? We've been told that what's true about our bodies and about our body's abilities and about our mind's abilities is one thing, and what's actually true is something entirely different. And modern medicine will often discredit things like the placebo effect because they can't explain it. Since they don't understand it, then we're just going to ignore it, throw it under the rug. And often they will give it big names like idiopathic, which is a fancy way of saying we don't know what causes that. And we've trusted these people to share with us the truth. And I don't know that there's some secret agenda there. Maybe, I don't know. I'm not going to give any weight to that because it doesn't serve me. It doesn't serve the planet. It's not helpful to judge. What is helpful is to recognize you can take back that power by choosing a different route. And by choosing to embrace the truth of the power of your mind. And I could give you a whole ton more examples of this. But what it comes down to is getting to a point of not just hearing it and believing it, but feeling it. So much so that you don't question it anymore. So back to my earlier comment about stress is good for you. If you believe and know, you've convinced yourself wholeheartedly that exercise is good for you, then you're going to go do that. And you're going to, no matter what takes place, you're going to be like, this is good for me, because that's the mindset that you walked into it with. If you walk into that same situation and you're filled with fear and you're certain that this is going to somehow turn out badly, that will also be true for you. So you are getting to determine how things turn out by the way that you view the situation. Let's put this in practical terms as far as menopause. So I've shared a video previously of when I have had a hot flash. No, excuse me. Well, that too, but a mood swing was the one that I shared a video on. And how I stayed in the moment, and instead of judging that thing as, oh my God, this is terrible, this is the end of the world, I just observed from a higher perspective, like, this is something going on inside my body. Isn't that interesting? And it was a profound moment of presence. Another example with the hot flashes. Okay, wow, my body is really creating a lot of energy right now. And it's reminding me how wonderful my body is, what a miraculous um, tool it is to allow me to experience life. And when I embrace it with acceptance and really love myself in that moment, I see it more as an experience rather than something to fight against, which of course then is the stress response, right? I'm fighting against it. When I stop having that mindset, the hot flash disappears. And sometimes even before it really gets started. And if you've had them, you'll know what I mean. Like, you start feeling that alteration in your body. And in that moment, I go, that's interesting. Instead of, oh, here it comes. Oh my God. And this type of shift in your mindset requires presence and getting outside of the story. So, yes, indeed, stress is good for you as long as you can embrace it with that mindset. Whatever you think you're capable of, you're capable of. And although there may be some things that need to physically happen in order to alter it, mostly it's about your mindset. Um, your energy has to shift. And even if you look at it from the perspective of people who have decided they're going to lift the car off of somebody who is hurt underneath the car, when you forget that you're incapable, all bets are off. So forgetting the story. One more example came to mind. There's a spiritual teacher called Wayne Dyer. His name's Wayne Dyer. And he's sharing a story of how he and his friend were caught in a stairwell, up a narrow stairwell in this ancient building that they were visiting. And there was a crowd of people behind them. And the friend of his had a problem with his hip. And he got to a certain point where he just couldn't do the next stair. And Wayne, who's behind him, had a problem with his knee, a long-standing problem that he kept struggling with. And he told his friend, there's no way up, there's no way down. They've got to get him to move, and somebody's going to have to help him. So Wayne says, "Okay, here's what we're going to do. I'm gonna turn my back to you, and you climb on, and I will carry you up the stairs." And he didn't hesitate to do this. He didn't even remember that he even had a problem with his knee. He forgot that his knee would not support that kind of extra weight, another 200 pounds on top of him. And he did what he said he was going to do. And then after the fact, he was like, oh my God, my knee is better. And he first tried to credit it to an experience he had with somebody called Saint Germain that he had been channeling with. And then he realized later on, no, it had nothing to do with Saint Germain. It wasn't this special gift I got endowed because I'm better than somebody else. It's because I forgot. Last example. There's a Netflix series called, I'm not recalling the name right now, something along the lines, I'll put it in the frame here in a minute. Um, it's on Netflix. It has to deal with um, the blue zones and the centenarians. So the researcher that's traveling to all these different countries, uh, investigating how these people are able to live so much longer than the average. Like there's blue zones are a population of much longer, much greater concentration of longevity. So a lot more centenarians in that part of the world. And the last episode, so spoiler alert, he shares how this man who has cancer living in the United States decides he's going to go back to his home country of Greece because the doctor told him he may have 6 months to live. And he decided, well, if I'm going to die soon, then I'm going to go do it in a country where I would like to be and just enjoy my last time on earth. And he lived another 20 years. And the researcher asked him, what did you do differently? And, with the other places and the other episodes, he had made some observations about patterns, different foods and types of exercise and time spent with family and that kind of stuff. And what this man ended up telling him was he didn't really change much of anything other than going back to Greece. He started a vineyard because he really liked to garden. And he spent all of his time out in the garden just enjoying himself. And he said to the researcher, I guess I just forgot to die. So, my point being, when we let go of the stories of who we think we are and what we think we're capable of, then the doors open to much bigger things. And this requires an energy shift, and it happens within our mind. Powerful stuff. Be careful what you choose to believe that you know. If any of this intrigues you and you would like to have a conversation about it, or you would like to comment in the comments, I encourage you to do so. Make it a great day. Choose wisely.